Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Nosy Karen won't respect social distancing and asks a question she doesn't like the answer to. This one happened a few years ago when I was out shopping. I should mention that I'm disabled and confined to a wheelchair from a spinal cord injury in 2007. Because of my disability and other health obstacles I face because of that, I'm scared of catching COVID, as there is a very high chance of me dying or becoming hospitalized if I caught it. I've already been in a coma once, so that's not something I want to do again. Due to my unwavering fear of COVID and generally not being a social person to begin with, I don't go out much. Usually a few times a week to get what I need and come straight home. It is no longer a requirement in my country to wear a mask in public, although I still do all the necessary steps to prevent myself from catching it. Mask, social distancing, self-isolation, not as miserable as that sounds. Being extra diligent with hand washing and only touching the things I have to. So when people get too close to me without wearing a mask, that tips my anxiety into overdrive. With that being said, on with the story. I was in the craft section at Kmart stocking up on what I needed, when I noticed a woman and her kid in the next aisle keep glancing at me. Neither were wearing a mask. For simplicity's sake, let's call them Karen and the kid. This was not an issue, as I'm used to people looking at my wheelchair. But then the kid, who was maybe like 8, walked up to me and began playing with some things near me. I'd gotten what I needed, so I ignored the kid and started rolling to the registers to complete my purchases. But this is where things get, well, interesting. He asks me, "Why are you in that?" I'm used to kids being curious and I don't mind telling them why I'm in a chair if they ask. So I told him, "Well, I fell off a roof." "Why?" "'Cause I didn't eat my vegetables." The only thing I could think to answer was, "But why?" Me not wanting to be stuck in this boomerang with a kid that was way too close to me, I say, "Sorry buddy, but I have to go," and I attempted to leave. The kid, not taking the hint, says, "Wait, how fast does your chair go? Can I push the button?" I have a horn on the controller of my power wheelchair. "No, sorry, I gotta go." I've been so distracted by this that I hadn't noticed his mother close beside him. The outside half of my right eye is blind, which was where she was, so I couldn't see her. She asks, "Why won't you answer his questions?" I did, but I really have to go, sorry." Karen, seeming to get more and more indignant as she spoke, "Oh come on, he's a kid. He's just curious. Why are you being so rude to my son? What would your mother think?" What I did next wasn't planned, but damn was it satisfying to see her reaction. My mother abused me growing up, wanted to switch me off when I was in a coma and tried to exploit money from me and my siblings after the deaths of our dad. So I have a lot of trauma to bring on the waterworks if required. I say, my mother? I could feel the heat flushing to my face and the tears reached my eyes as I forced myself to cry. Well, if you must know, my mom and dad died in a plane crash when I was 19. What else would you like to know? I said this while intentionally stuttering my words to give my performance an extra zing. My mother is unfortunately still alive. It was my dad and uncle that died. But I had that trauma that cling to at that moment. Then Karen instantly going white and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And her kids scurried away. To give her credit, she stopped being a Karen for a second. They might not sound that entitled, and yeah, the kid wasn't that bad. But the mother, on the other hand, it wasn't exactly what she said, but how she said it. and being raised by my mother has given me the ability to spot one from a mile off. Next story. HOA vandalizes father's truck, gets immediate justice. This happened a few years back. Our HOA has always been known to be sneaky and to flat out give false accusations on homeowners, especially on this day with security cameras, and we can pretty easily spot out who the investigators are. Most recently, a homeowner was told she was supposed to get approval before she started re-shingling her roof. The thing is, her roof hasn't been re-shingled in 10 years, and she had no plans to do it. Things like that. Call it just a mistake, call it malicious. Well, a few years ago, we had our time to shine. It was a simple morning. I was still temporarily living with my father at the time, and well, one morning we decided to go out to get groceries, when we found that his pickup truck had been smashed into. Nothing was taken, it was just smashed into. In fact, I still have pictures from that day just before the cops arrived. The cops arrive, and they do some investigating and find that a rock inside the truck was from a house down the street. Unfortunately, they couldn't get them to admit to the crime, nor could they even prove it was them. Understandable. Criminals will grab things that they find. But it was suspicious. The rock, I should say, was a very special kind of rock that no one else in the neighborhood had. Some round, polished type. Very unique. After this incident, I installed a security camera on this house. Well, not 2 days later, we got an HOA violation for a vehicle eyesore that needs to be removed. Just 2 days later, I am confused how such a letter could have been written up so fast, but I started to suspect foul play. One day we were home and had a knock at the door. The HOA actually called a code inspection officer. The week hadn't even been over yet, so the parts to fix the truck weren't delivered yet. We weren't paying expedited shipping for damages we didn't cause, and the truck was so old insurance would probably just total it. The truck is sentimental to him, so he wasn't going to get rid of it. It still ran great. Code inspection tells my father that vehicles which do not run need to be removed. They both stop talking and take a second, and both almost say at the same time, "Don't I know you?" Turns out, the code inspection officer went to the same church as my father, and they knew each other. This isn't malicious compliance yet, we are only just beginning. The officer tells my father if he can show the truck starts, he's going to write it up as being in code. And my father starts the truck just fine, as the engine isn't damaged. He tells him to go on with his day and to have a good one. At this point, we are furious because we are starting to suspect the HOA may have done this, as there is no way they could have possibly known so fast. Unfortunately, our turn of the street had no neighbors with security cameras until I installed one on our house, so it got nothing specific to our incident. Down the street, these people supposedly broke into a car as well, but the camera on their house was unable to see anything. But here is where the fun began. Fast forward a couple months after nothing happened, I decided to install a new dashcam in my car. I found a good one that uses very little power off the battery and can activate if there is any bumps to the car. Even if the car is off, it just needs to be wired straight to the battery for this. It's a thinkware. A few days later, we got a violation notice for our mailbox being crooked. It wasn't crooked much, but I do remember it recently having an angle. Odd. I could just fix it, but my car was aiming straight at the mailbox. I'm thinking no, this could not be possible. It only records if there is a bump. I took out the memory card and apparently I either didn't configure it correctly, but it was recording the whole time. It never went into sleep mode. I watched as the investigator walked up to the mailbox and pushed it crooked, then wrote down on his tablet his findings and took a picture for record. I'm appalled at what I see, and finally I have the proof I needed. Now for the malicious compliance part, they wanted us to come to the board meeting and present what is going on at our address. We haven't told him yet that we had the pictures, but to summarize real fast how our HOA works, the board hires an outside company to do the grunt work. Let's call it pantry management. We go to the meeting and sit down. Pantry management is the one in control of our account, and I swear to you she looked like a Karen, so the name fits for her. As time goes by in the meeting, we get to discuss what is happening at our house. We present the timelines and tell them about the truck being smashed, and just 2 days later, we get a letter. We ask what dates the investigator was out for that time, and Karen refuses to answer it. She argues ignorantly that we should keep better care of our stuff, as if it was our fault. Then comes the mailbox incident. We tell her that we have reasons to believe that the investigator is the one that is causing damages to our property and is harassing us. Karen denies this and says that is impossible, that she knows him personally. Oh, is that so? She says yes, why? I then pull out my laptop out of my book bag that I have been hiding, open it up to the video file already loaded, and show it to the entire board. Enter Exhibit A. I said out loud and play the video, and Karen's face gets bright red. She says that is not her investigator. I then also pulled out the letter about the mailbox, which was complete with a date. It matches a cooked-on timestamp on the video. She still tries to claim it's not them. No, it's a coincidence. I'm sorry, but you have a vandal and it's not us. It's not? I let the video play, knowing she's falling into a bit hard right now. As a man walks towards my car, you can plain as day see pantry management on his shirt. She's no longer red now. She is white as a ghost. The board looks over at her and asks her what she has to say about this. And Karen is silent and has nothing except a few noises, which I assume was her brain trying to comprehend what just happened. I then proceeded to bring up a previous case, which I happened to remember before we left for the meeting, where we had a grass violation beside our house. Now, this area they were claiming was actually not visible from the sidewalk due to the house shape. I asked point blank, has at any time your investigators walked on our property illegally trespassing? Knowing as per the rules, they aren't allowed to do that. Karen is visibly shaken now and mutters out, "No, of course not," with her head down, unable to maintain eye contact with me. She probably feels that I have more evidence, but unfortunately I didn't. So I ask again, and she asks, why? Well, our neighbors who are lawyers literally next door to us where the side of this wall was, stand up and say, actually that's not true. I have witnessed one of your investigators go between our houses and poke around the trash bins. Bingo! I did not even realize she had this information. I couldn't have asked for better timing. Karen at this point just starts arguing with our neighbors about no proof. The board proceeded to apologize for the incident, and they were going to discuss what is going to happen in the future about this. At that point, the meeting is over. A month passes, and we get a letter that a new person will be in charge of pantry management and new investigators. She was fired that night. Since she was fired, my father tells me we only get the occasional blip of errors, but they correct it immediately and do not bother us really anymore. Next story. You don't have to sell to the Americans. Meet my French husband and waste your time. So I'm 38 female vacationing with my mother, 71 female in Europe right now, and she just told me this epic story that I must now pass down to all of you. Some background. My mother is a very nice person to strangers, especially salespeople. Aggressive salespeople will back her into a corner for an hour until I come rescue her because she doesn't want to be rude. My father passed away a few years ago at age 81, and he was born in Egypt and was schooled in both French and Arabic and considered both to be his native languages, and then learned English as an adult when he moved to the US. A few years after they got married in 1976, but before they had kids, they took a vacation to Paris. My mother collects stamps and she wanted some French plate blocks to add to her collection. She left my father napping in the hotel room and went to the post office a block away, planning on spending $300 to $400 on stamps. She got to the post office and waited in a very long time. When she finally got to the front, the woman behind the counter told her in perfect English that she did not speak English. So my mom waited for another post employee to become free. The second employee finally became available but was very rude to my mother, telling her that she couldn't help her, couldn't sell her this, out of stock that, and so on. All while rolling her eyes and being otherwise nasty and rude, nearly bringing my mother to tears. My mother was so upset that she decided to get some revenge. She went back to the hotel room and woke up my father and brought him to the post office. My mother waited until the rude woman was available and had my dad translate in perfect French, telling the woman that my mom wanted the plate block of every set of stamps she had, watching her remove the plate block from each sheet. For those of you that do not know, when you remove the plate block from a sheet of stamps, the remaining stamps must be counted by hand. After the nasty woman had a nice stack of plate blocks for my mother, one of every stamp design they had, my mother turned to my father and said, "Tell her I've changed my mind." Not only did that woman miss out on a huge sale for being mean and nasty, but she also had to spend a good 30 to 60 minutes after closing to hand count each individual stamp after they closed for the day. I am just so proud of my very polite mother right now. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.